I have been going back onto the Brompton site and looking at the official chart for gear inches, my own calculations, and some other people's numbers as well. And I just find that the whole place is a chaos. The whole Brompton lineup is a chaos. But in any case, I'm going to try to sort it out. But before I go into it, please click below and go over to our Twitter page and vote on the poll. I'm very curious as to what your opinions are. Just looking at the website up front, the organization of the product line and the product categories themselves do not make much sense to me. We have an A, C, P, T line. The T suggests titanium, but the steel doesn't start with an S, so it doesn't suggest anything. What's the difference between the A and the C? So I would do it differently. How about if we used a simple S for all steel frames and STI for steel and titanium hybrids, and just TI for anything titanium or titanium and carbon? The TI acronym is already well recognized. Most people in the biking industry or hobby, if you will, know that TI always stands for titanium. So I think this would be just far more suggestive. And for an electric version, I would just add the dash lowercase e, which is once again widely recognized by everybody in the hobby. And I don't think we need more than 3 categories. I'm not sure if even an electric category should be required. I would have created an electric kit that could be attached to any of the frames, so that if you already have a steel frame, you shouldn't be required to buy a whole new bicycle. You should be able to just buy the electric kit and put it on. Like, there are so many electric kits out there. The same thing about the gears, but more about the gears later. This is the chart that the Brompton is featuring on their website, and this is supposed to be their full collection currently up to the 12 speed. As you can see, the 2 speed is almost irrelevant. I have owned the 2 speed before. You might as well just get the single speed, which is actually not shown here, but it's not much different than having a 2 speed. The 3 speed is better, but it is still a very far cry from what you would need if you're not riding on an overwhelmingly flat surface. So I removed the 2 speed and the 3 speed, and what you see here is what is most relevant, and especially what I'm going to be concerned about is the 6 speed, because that was my Brompton as I bought it in 2017. And at the bottom is what is supposed to be the latest and the widest ranging gear setup, the Brompton 12 speed. You see that there is a tremendous overlap and cluster at 2 points, and I will say more about that. But let me look at the measurements the calculations that I started, not so much from my own measurements, but what Brompton is saying. And here is the first modification I had done to my 6-speed. This was back in 2017, and I imagined that it would have been the wider range 6-speed. But in any case, I removed the cassette from the rear, and I installed a single-speed 12-tooth cog. And so the single sprocket with 12 tooth would look like the higher end of what you see on the blue lines at the bottom for the 6-speed. Because I removed the lighter gear, it should be the harder gear that stays in. So a little bit over 40 gear inches at the bottom and a little over 100 for the maximum gear that I had available. And the setup is 12 to 50 with a 50-tooth chainring in the front. After some time, I found out that an 11-tooth sprocket was available, and so I replaced the 12-tooth with an 11-tooth, and that should increase the gears by about 10%, maybe 9.5%, something like that. and that's what you see on the second line of red dots from the bottom. And the third row from the bottom shows my final modification. You can see that it's still 11 in the rear, but the front has been moved up from 50 to 60 tooth. It's a big chain wheel, and that's a 20% gain, or at least it should be a 20% gain. So looking at the maximum gear ranges, going from a little over 110, 20% up, that would mean adding maybe another 23, 24 gear inches, something like that. So 110 plus another 24, you're going to end up with 130 something, 135. I think this is a pretty optimistic depiction of it, but it definitely would not go over 135. And what I am measuring is not 135 but 148, which actually checked out better if I used as a starting point what the Brompton 12 speed has. So is it possible that the 12 speed has the wide gear range hub and the original 6 speed came with something else? But I definitely have the wider range hub because I'm going up to gear inches of 148 with an 11 to 60 setup. In which case, maybe both of them have, in which case the blue lines cannot be correct. It doesn't seem that you would only score 100 gear inches even with a 12 tooth. You should be doing a little bit better than that. But I'm curious as to your opinions, so put your opinions below in the comment section and see what your numbers show. The Brompton system, as it's currently set up, the current lineup of products is simply a chaos. There are too many gears, there are too many models. A lot of things are not interchangeable, unlike they used to be in the old Brompton era that made this company so popular. So I would recommend that within each of the three categories I have proposed, the steel titanium hybrid, and the titanium, there should be 3 gear options for the Brompton for each and every Brompton frame. And the first one should be a single gear. Single gears are very useful for people who want a very light bike, people who ride in flat environment without too many hills. It's just a very simple, easy to maintain system. That's why so many messengers before the electric era used to use this setup, because at least in Manhattan, most of the roads are flat. There are some that are not so flat, but for the most part, you can suffer it out. And it's a very lightweight, very sturdy, reliable, easy to maintain system. The second option we should have should be an external derailleur system, but much wider than what they have today. It is not impossible for them to go down to 10 tooth. It has been done by Tern and by Bromton. In fact, I believe Bromton created this before the Tern company even existed. And the only way to do this is to build a custom wheel hub, because the wheel hub has to be able to attach a sprocket that tiny at the end. So the end has to be redesigned. As far as the larger cogs are concerned, I don't think they need more than 4. The 4 speeds are fine, and they might not be able to go as big as the Tern that you see here in the center, because the Tern has 20-inch wheels. So okay, they cannot go up to 24 teeth, but maybe they can go up to 18. In fact, several people have privately installed larger sprockets already. So all they need to do is look at the people, how they are tuning their bikes, and just copy it. And this would be a light but wide-ranging solution for people who want a light bike. Probably everybody on the titanium and titanium steel would go with this option. And it would be a bit more complex than a single speed, but it would not be near as heavy as an internal hub gear system. Finally, instead of all these wide range, narrow range, weird, antiquated hub systems, Can they just design something that's similar to this Shimano? If Shimano can come up with an 8-speed gear system, much wider than what Brompton is currently offering, that is only 2 or 3 millimeters wider than the current triangle, then why couldn't Brompton re-engineer it, maybe remove one gear? So okay, instead of 8, we would have 7 gears, but much wider range, and eliminate all of this dual gear system in the rear. It's overly complicated, it's heavy, it's full of wires. For people who are long range commuters, people who use the bike for touring or day trips, something like that, in various terrains, heavier, bigger hub gear would make sense. Something with a wide range, almost as wide as the Shimano, or maybe matching that performance. I think they could match the Shimano if they really wanted to be honest. I mean, the difference is only a couple of millimeters, so why not just back engineer the thing and launch it as a Brompton product? So these are the 3 gear options that should be available for anyone either already owning or buying either a steel, a hybrid, or a titanium frame. What do you think? Comment below and check out the poll. Make sure you vote. I'll see you in the next video.